Hello everyone, welcome to Waddesdon Manor. So this is the family seat of the Rothschild family. Inside this marvelous building, it was built from 1877 to 1889 by Hippolyte, what was his surname? Something Tressailleur, something like that, a French architect in a French style, meant to be sort of meant to be like a pre-revolutionary chateau. Look at the amphora there with all the classical scenes, the little cherubs. And look at this ghastly maw of a rather ferocious looking ram on one side of it. So all these sort of like 18th and 19th century copies of like classical art. So we're just inside the main entrance. There's a portico, so you can get out of your horse-drawn coach and stay out of the rain should there be precipitation. Look, take a break there, not allowed to sit down there. There's enormous oil painting by F. Guardi of Venice. Maybe recognize St. Mark's Cathedral there. La Repubblica Serenissima di San Marco. And then look at this bust here of this lady with those feathers coming out of her hair. Wow. And there's a huge fireplace here. But and those reclining figures, nudes, male and female, beside each other. The bearded one is male, by the way. I know it's difficult at these transgender times to figure that out. But they're a bit cisgender in those days. And a very high mirror, partly because you want to look at yourself. You don't look at yourself that high, but it increases the amount of light. Remember, there were candles, okay, there were gas lamps, but lighting some of this being was difficult in those days. Plain ceiling, perhaps oddly. They've neglected that as a place to display art. Sorry, go ahead. Now, the automated elephant is one of the finest conversation pieces here. So they thought made in 1770 in London, I'm not quite sure, by a French clockmaker, Hubert Martin. And it does actually move, and it does actually function, the clock, but look at the detail on that. So it's not brightly enough lit. So there's so many little figures there, you can see their facial expressions. Some are looking like Oriental rather than Indian, as in Chinese rather than Indian. And this huge howdah, as in like saddle on its back. Maybe show you from another angle. Look at that. Wow. So not quite like a digital watch. Pity they don't have it moving, actually. Anyway, so there's so many more things to see here. And plants inside, and then these very tall windows. Look at the rather thick curtains, I suppose, to keep the chill out in winter before they had central heating. An amphora, and then this wooden panelling. You see all these figures carved here. Isn't that splendid? So they had such extraordinary virtuosity, all the artists in those days. They've rolled out the red carpet for me, as you can see. And then there are more cherub-like figures here. What is that little boy showing the other boy? I don't know. So this is a Le Goût Rothschild, as in the Rothschild taste. These marble figures. And he's got holding some sort of toy in his hand. And they've got various implements there, mathematical instruments.
So it was an area that he knew. And he brought
and then these infants are playing with the globe, drawing on the globe. One of them is somewhat allegorical, the ruler and the compasses, and they just uncovered it. Is it to show that the Rothschilds, that they controlled the world? So until 1796, we were living in the Frankfurt ghetto. Then the French Revolution came along, affected the German Rhineland, and the wall of the ghetto was torn down. Up until that time, they had to spend the night in the ghetto. They were allowed out to trade. They couldn't own farmland. They couldn't engage in forestry. They couldn't deal in wine or various other things. Or weapons, so that's why they had to deal in jewels, be currency traders and so forth, bankers. So, and then they got this reputation for usury, because of course, well, the Catholic Church until the 16th century said Christians cannot lend money for interest to other Christians, but non-Christians were permitted to lend money, because obviously it's a bit of a risk lending money, and there could be inflation. So Jews got it pushed into that sector, and then they got a bad name. Okay, people don't like paying their debts. They were exploiting those who are desperate, which is often not true. They're usually lending to the wealthy, governments and kings, and that's what the Shylock meme got going. Look at all that. this gold leaf hats up and down there, and the very thick curtains there, and a little turkey on this one here. And I just saw that's an inner garden and a courtyard. I just passed by. So they really started to make a name for themselves after 1796. And so the French Revolution presented with tremendous opportunities. And when Napoleon occupied Hesse Castle, he promoted the Rothschilds. He used them as their financiers. With the Rothschilds, they then seemed to have sort of switched sides to be on the British side. By the time of the Peninsular Wars, as fighting in Spain and Portugal, from about 1801 onwards. Look at that enormous chandelier over the centre of the room. These flowers, I'm pretty sure, are not real. Don't look real to me. And then they got those gigantic above the fireplace, and on the mantelpiece a very fine-looking clock, a few candles, an enormous mirror, as in to maximise the light. And I sort of forgot to point out the little garden over there, interior garden. And here we got this skylight here, and it's like a little conservatory. It's 18th century style, even though they actually did so well at the French Revolution. It seemed to be very nostalgic, because you don't know le douceur de vivre if you hadn't been an aristocrat in France before the Revolution. Of course, most people certainly weren't aristocrats back then. So here we are, more amphora, or amphorae, is that plural? Not quite sure they were so mad keen on them. And more of these classical figures holding it up. And who's this lady with that Celtic cross thing? What's she holding behind her as her dress billows out in the stormy blast? Someone atop it in a toga, rather, what's the word? Androgynous figure. So there's just so much marble around. Oh, the instruments of joy. Look at the musical instruments on the side of this. And a column bedecked in laurels. And who is this who's playing us a cheery tune on his flute? I know not. Well, so that cost a pretty penny. What do you think? My place is not quite like this. And then there's a sink. And who is this? Looks like Bacchus or somebody. Perhaps we'll be spitting out water. I doubt it'll be wine. And they're little chairs. Well, don't walk on them. So here are floorboards. We've got parquet in other parts of the house. But I shan't film the whole house. You'll have to come here yourself. Okay, so into one of the dining rooms. Now that's more like it. Look at that gigantic chandelier. And look at that on the ceiling. That's stencil work. Can't say no great deal about interior design. And a huge tapestry, rather faded there, showing some sylvan scene in classical antiquity. Some rather shaggy sheep in the bottom left-hand corner. One of the guides, very courteously stepping aside, not wanting to get in my film. I can't think who else is there. He's offering us something like that, a pipe to play. This country swain. I know, are they two ladies? I don't think it's a sapphic scene. It seems it's a trifle amorous to me. And somebody's obviously going to have a bite of tucker. All right. And yet they amplify the light. Look, I can see myself. I'm waving at myself. I can see myself in the mirror. How come I can't see myself here looking at that mirror? I don't know how I've got the angles wrong. Okay. Oh, well, this one will be a bit easier. Anyway, this is the southern entrance. I think it's actually speaking the back of the house. And the north entrance is where I came in. So now you can see the back of my head here. Okay. So you get an idea. And then look at all these bare-breasted ladies up there. So isn't it marvellous that even in our most puritanical era in Christendom, we allowed nudes? Not so inhuman as to consider the human form in its natural state to be repugnant or somehow immoral to display for aesthetic pleasure. And there's another one in this corner. Just can't do justice just glimpsing these from afar. Anyway, I don't think I'll film the whole house. You get the idea. Rather darker here. And chaps in military uniform. I don't know whose side they were on. And then above the door, who's this man who needs a haircut? He looks like one of those Bourbon kings of France, because they often appeared in Roman guise, but with very long hair. When the ancient Romans tend not to have ridiculously long hair. And if you look down at this carpet, it's got SPQR, Senatus ac Popularum Quae Roma, as in the Senate and people of Rome, sheep's heads and so forth. I'm showing it upside down. There's Pan, that god of animals in Greek mythology, as in he induced panic. So anyway, they had all sorts of priceless objects of art from France, Italy, and elsewhere in Europe they brought here. They were not quite so into Egyptomania, although there was a bit of a craze for that at the time. They used to have dinner parties here, be a bachelor wing where men would play billiards and smoke their cigars. The ladies would withdraw to the drawing room after dinner and socialise separately. So Edward VII and the Souls here, that upper-class social circle, they hung out here in the 1890s. Queen Victoria took the unusual step of inviting herself here in 1890. So they've been very fully accepted. So there's relatively little anti-Semitism in the United Kingdom. So was it the Jewish Relief Act of 1854 said that they could hold any position. You look up high. Who's this riding his quadriga through the heavens? And various figures from the Olympian pantheon. Okay, so what else was I going to point out about this place? And look at this topless lady holding up the lamp. But she's dropped her jug, and water is pouring out of it. Fortunately, her other jugs are very much upright. Okay, so I think that's probably enough. I can show you. I'm not going to film every single room. You just have to come here yourself. Wow, look at those vases of urns. Highly polished, these blue ceramics on the table over there. And behold, on yon mantelpiece, something similarly opulent. So anyway, it's quite astonishing. Okay, so now there's a richly inlaid wallpaper that's scarlet. All right, I think that's enough from me. Let's say goodbye from this drawing room. You have to come here on your own. Okay, so please donate on PayPal. I really need donations to keep the channel going. So find me on PayPal, georgecallahan79@gmail.com. That's all small letters, and Callahan spelled Callaghan. All right. Thank you everyone for your fantastic support, and goodbye from Waddesdon Manor.